Hello, I'm Aubrey Shepherd. Today's the 30th of January 2012, and I have photos from 2 or 3 events, and some streamside problems continue. That's the part of Town Branch as it comes off the University of Arkansas. That's where the stream comes together about a half a mile or less up on the campus there at Leroy Pond Drive. From the left hole, you had what they call City Branch or something on West Mountain, Markham Hill. Runs down and comes out there, and the water in the one on your right comes from uphill toward Cleveland, or yeah, I guess so, up to past Maple. Anyway, that's showing you how the stream has no vegetation as it runs through the campus. And about 3 years ago, when people were working on the streamside ordinance, this whole area through here was used as a bad example of how to manage your streamside. Notice the boulders that are in there have been moved and placed and brought in and so forth over the years, and the erosion occurs all around them because this little bit of trail running through there is actually underwater when there's really heavy rain, and that's all coming from west, north, and part of the east, under the football field, under the basketball arenas, and volleyball arena, and all the things that are built up there. And this water's piped underground. There used to be lots of absorbent soil around there, so it didn't seem to make any difference. There's a nice, they call part of it Mullins Creek, the part that comes from north of the football stadium, and they have those signs up there provided by Audubon in conjunction with the university, explaining the value of having vegetation on the stream bank. And they still don't have it after these many years. There was actually a plan to try to restore this to native vegetation and so forth as far back as about 2003 and 4, maybe before that, I don't know. But that little detention pond with some vegetation in it is very tiny there. In fact, it's just really a ditch. That's where it runs out into the stream. And it just does not have much value. It doesn't hold much water. And a lot of the ground around there is fill dirt anyway, where they've moved and traded things out. You can see it's got some cattails growing in there. But that originally looked like they had dug it out to be a big detention pond. Then they filled in most of it, and it's just piped out of the ground from over at the high school side. So that's silt in the grass there. There's not much grass growing. It's pretty pathetic, and that's because it's running off from upstream over, in this case, from the high school side, where they're doing construction work and so forth. That's Joanna Pollock. This was at a Sierra Club gathering at the an Omni Center gathering at Nightbird Books, and the man in the center with Joanna there is Robert McAfee. He's got a PhD in climate science, and he lectured on the realities of climate this past weekend. That's John Rule at left, and that's a young man who's now a member of Sierra Club. And they're sort of, target to live some of the same life, both outdoors, but John's lived outdoors for many, many years. Well, that lady's a writer, a very good writer, Quinn Montana. And somehow these got out of order, so you see John Rule and the young man who I think is going to know some of the same things John Rule does, partly because he's studied to be a stream or outdoor expert, and partly because he's going to keep being out there. John Rule was an English professor back in the day. That's Amber Tripathi at left. That's a gathering of the FNHA, Fayetteville Natural Heritage Association, and they're hearing Amber talk about insects. Well, this picture is one that of mine, but it is the type of thing that Amber had on her slides. I couldn't seem to get any of my photos. Hello, I'm Aubrey Shepherd, and this is Tom McKinney. Tom's been with the Sierra Club for how many
Since 1975, whatever that is, 36 years.
I first met you at a Sierra Club meeting in Fayetteville, and since then it's been named the Ozark Headwaters Group.
Correct.
It's basically all these years you've been looking at half the state, maybe, as the Highlands Group.
Yes, sir. Mostly the western half of the state takes in the Ozark and Ouachita Mountains down to Hempstead County.
So Tom has written many papers defending nature, basically, in Arkansas. And tell us about the latest thing you've worked on.
Well, the latest thing, the Arkansas chapter of the Sierra Club and the Ozark Headwaters Group has got a long history of working in national forest and public lands issues. And one of the latest projects we work on, the Forest Service is attempting to convert around 38,000 acres over in the Richland Creek drainage, basically from a moist upland forest, which is native to the area, to what they're calling an oak savanna.
And this is to facilitate an increase in population of elk.
Of elk, that's correct. It is not a stated goal of the project. In fact, they specifically exclude discussion of that issue from their project, but it's the worst kept secret around, and it's also a stated goal of not only the Forest Service but the Arkansas Game and Fish to expand the elk population. And
that's not even a native.
It's not even native species, and don't get me wrong, I love elk. Yeah, and they have established themselves very well in the Buffalo National River.
Well, let's click on some photos that'll show some forest pictures and the type of habitat that we defend. And this is natural habitat. You can see a waterfall. These photos were made on April 28th, year before last. And they're on John Rule's property, but it just shows some of the things that are already in bloom at that time. What would it do, this burning, what will it do to this kind of habitat?
Well, this is the thing that a lot of folks don't realize, is that the Forest Service is engaged in a massive burning program.
There's John, by the way, on the road to his house.
They say that they are attempting to recreate the prehistoric or pre-civilization habitat that was the Ozarks. They claim that it was a very open wood with lots of grassy understory and widely spaced trees.
And this is what we value as very diverse habitat. There's John Rule with a young member of the Sierra Club at a recent meeting where climate change was discussed in Fayetteville. But your contention is that it was never that much open land in there historically, except after the Native Americans from the east were forced into this area, and after settlers were in this area.
That's correct. Fire has always been a part of the natural cycle in the forest, but it has, in the Ozarks, and the southern forest, in the Ozarks, it is not near as extensive as it was out in the western forest. Out there, a lot of the forests are actually what are called fire dependent. The forest is dependent upon fire to actually reproduce and to clear the understory and to introduce nutrients into the ecosystem. Here in Arkansas and in the south, in a lot of the eastern forests, that is not the case. You have increased humidity, 30 to 40 to 50 inches of rainfall per year. It's a very moist and humid habitat. The main way that nutrients introduced into the ecosystem is through the breakdown of organic matter by microorganisms. And whereas out in the west, it might take literally 50 years or longer for a large down tree to be recycled back into the forest floor and ecosystem, sometimes even longer. In the Ozarks, and I'm afraid I've been around long enough to actually watch this happen, a tree 20 inches in diameter, almost 3 feet, within 15, 20 years, it's totally broken down.